Hey everybody, it's Jennifer Schaus coming to you live from Washington, D.C., and thanks for joining us today in our Webinar Wednesday series. Today we're going to be talking, or actually this whole entire month, we're talking about GSA schedules. Last Wednesday we covered is the GSA schedule the right tool for you. If you missed that, the recording is on our website. It's also on our YouTube channel with 400 plus government contracting webinars, all complimentary download. All of our PowerPoints are on slideshare.net. Again, those are also complimentary. Today we're going to cover the proposal components of the GSA schedule. So just a quick blurb about our webinars. They are every Wednesday. They are absolutely free, and as I mentioned, they're recorded. You can find them on the YouTube channel and on our website. In the interest of time, we do not take questions. We will take them if you want to email them to us at the hello@jenniferschaus.com email address. You can also submit your questions through our website on the Contact Us section, or you can give us a phone call. All that contact information is going to be posted in a couple of slides. First and foremost, we want to thank the NVSBC. It's the National Veterans Small Business Coalition. This is the largest nonprofit trade association in the country. They provide a lot of great services for veterans, and even if you're not a veteran, it's great to go in and meet these folks who have dedicated their lives or a portion of their lives to the country. So, but they do work with government contractors and provide a variety of services there. For more information, you can jump on their website. It's listed there on the screen that you see. Okay, and just a quick piece here about us. We do provide professional consulting services for federal contractors. This includes helping you with the GSA schedule. We also help with 8A certification and some of the other services listed there, including marketing and business development, compliance, et cetera, et cetera. Each of those services has its own section on our website, so if you want more information, I encourage you to go to our website or just contact us directly. Our newsletter that goes out every Monday, or if Monday is a holiday, it'll go out on Tuesday, now reaches over 21,000 subscribers. That is both government and government contractors. The large majority of the subscribers are government contractors. So if you're selling any services to contractors, you are welcome to advertise in the newsletter. Contact us for rates, and we are running a special right now through the end of September. Okay, I'm your speaker today, so you guys are stuck with me. Usually we have some guest speakers, but today I'm going to cover, as I mentioned, the GSA schedule and actually just the nuts and bolts of putting the proposal together. Again, this is complimentary. It's recorded. The recording will be posted on our website later today. It will also be on the YouTube channel, and again, the PowerPoint slides are on slideshare.net. Okay, so just to keep things organized, we've got a short agenda here. We're going to do a brief piece on the introduction, just a little bit about GSA. We'll talk about then the three different sections, the admin, technical, and pricing section of the proposal. I've got some concluding remarks, and then we'll wrap it up. So it should take, let's say 30 minutes maybe, give or take 5 or 10. Okay, so the introduction. GSA, that's a picture there of their downtown DC office, which is a couple blocks away from us. And GSA provides two main services, we'll say, well, maybe three if you want to look at it in broader terms. Is the number one is the Public Building Service, PBS, and so GSA is the main landlord for all of the government agencies. They've got the contract GSA schedule, so the contract vehicle. And then they also, if you guys have ever gone on to FPDS, Federal Procurement Data System, USA Spending, they manage all of those websites and data. So they are responsible for the migration of basically everything to betasam.gov. So GSA is the innkeeper for those websites and that data. So a pretty big role in working with federal contractors. So specifically today we're talking about the schedule. As I mentioned, it is a contract vehicle only. And this page, this piece I'm giving you guys just as FYI. Too many people we see jump into the schedule without really understanding or knowing why they're even getting it. They don't have good reason to get it. They're getting it because one of their competitors is on the schedule, or because GSA does a great job of marketing themselves. But let me just tell you what it is and what it's not. So as I mentioned, it's a contract vehicle, meaning it's a mechanism for the government to purchase from you. It can be used by all of federal government. It is only a marketing tool. It is absolutely not required. You do not need this to sell to the government. You can be a small business and find an RFP on what used to be known as FedBizOps, which I mentioned is now betasam.gov, and you can submit a proposal and you can win a contract without having a GSA schedule. As long as you meet the requirements and you've got the winning formula, it's going to be a combination of pricing, past performance, and technical. You can win a contract without a GSA schedule. So it's, as we say here, a feather in the cap or a ticket to the dance, but you're still going to need to find somebody to dance with. And that's really the most important part of having a reason to get onto the schedule. It is one of many, 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 many options that the government has when they decide to make a purchase. And we're going to look at a pie chart that I've created that will hopefully kind of make that a little bit more apparent. And it's only used about, in overall federal government purchases, roughly about 12% of the time. It's going to vary for your specific product, service, or software, whatever it is you're selling. And you can do some homework to find out specifically how much goes through the schedule for your services to see if it's worth it for you to go down that path or not. So the pie chart here is, how the government purchases. They can basically just make direct awards without using a contract vehicle. They can set contracts aside for small businesses. They can select sole source if there's only one company on the actual planet that is able to provide that particular product or service. So they have many, many options, and GSA is just one of many. So make sure you know who your customer is and how they prefer to purchase. And now that we're talking specifically about the schedule, you've got about 20,000 companies that hold a GSA schedule, and more than half of them have zero sales through their schedule. Now, they may have a $5 million or $10 million worth of revenue, and it could be with a federal government agency, but that agency may be purchasing through another contract vehicle. So it's basically the 80-20 rule that the top portion of the schedule holders have the bulk of the revenue. So all of this data is public. Do your homework before you decide to go down the path. It's a contract vehicle, so it is coming with terms and conditions, and it's 99.999% based on your pricing and primarily your lowest prices. You've also got to bring in at least $25,000 per year through your schedule. So in that example, if you've got $5 million coming in through the Air Force or the Navy or Department of Commerce or Ag or whoever it is, it doesn't matter to GSA. You've got to bring it in through your schedule. Otherwise, they're going to boot you off. You're also going to have to pay them an industrial funding fee, IFF, which is 0.75% of your GSA schedule sales only. So if you've got zero sales coming in through your schedule and $5 million coming in through perhaps set-asides, you owe GSA nothing. If that $5 million is coming in through your schedule, you're going to have to pay them 0.75. So you'll have to have some contract administration people in place for that. Okay, so that's just kind of the word to the wise. Don't go down the path unless it's really meant for you, and more specifically, your customer prefers to use that. And you can do homework to find that answer. So the schedule, it's an RFP. It's an open enrolling RFP, meaning that you can go to sam.gov and download the request for proposal. And just like any other proposal, you're going to have requirements that you'll need to meet in order to respond. And just because you meet the requirements does not mean it's a green light that this is a good idea for you. The schedule will go through updates, which they call refreshes. And so you want to make sure once you download that RFP, let's say you downloaded it in January of 2020, beginning of this year, and then you got sidetracked with, a host of other things that we could list off that have happened between now and January. And so they're now, I believe, on refresh number 4. So if you're submitting a proposal to GSA based on refresh number 1, then right out of the bat, you're going to be rejected because you're submitting to an old solicitation. And those refreshes or updates are really changes to the terms and conditions. So we highly suggest that you make, if you're doing this internally, that you make a compliance matrix. Okay, so the first section, like any other RFP that's out there, you're going to have an administrative section. And the components of the administrative section include your last 2 full years, so 24 months of balance sheet and income statement, preferably showing no losses. So you want decent revenue. It should not be a startup company. You should, no government contracting, healthy financials. Sometimes once you submit your proposal to GSA, you will eventually get a letter from GSA, and it's going to be asking for a bank reference. There's a specific form. It's the GSA standard form, SF is standard form 527. Your bank will need to complete that and send that off to GSA. Make sure you get a copy of that just for your records. You're going to have to take a readiness assessment. Give yourself about an hour or so to complete that. That can be found in the Vendor Support Center, vsc.gsa.gov, as well as the Pathway to Success, and that's vsc.gsa.gov as well. That is the Vendor Support Center. Both of those should have been completed within 12 months of your proposal submission date. And those are just good to take just to understand exactly what it is you're signing up for. If you have no idea what the GSA schedule is and you're just going to roll the dice and decide it might be a good idea for your business, please go through that as you are evaluating the pros and cons. Also within this administrative section, your SAM record needs to be current. It also needs to have the correct NAICS code, your North American Industry Classification System. It's a 6-digit number that corresponds to what it is you do. So if your NAICS code is 541611, management consulting, there are specific SIN numbers, special item numbers within the schedule that correspond to that. So you need to make sure that your primary NAICS code matches up to your GSA schedule number. Eventually, they're going to ask for your tax ID number, so you may as well throw it in at the onset, as well as your DUNS number, which is actually part of the submission process, and it'll show up obviously in your SAM record. If you're using an outside firm or consultant, then you'll need an authorized negotiator form. It's a GSA form. It's in the solicitation package. Everything is in there. You also want to list who within your company is able to negotiate and sign contracts on behalf of the company. In order to get into the portal to submit your proposal, which is eoffer.gsa.gov, you will need a digital certificate. It's going to cost you anywhere from $100 to $300 based on if you get the 1, 2, or 3 year certificate. It is person as well as device specific. So I have a digital certificate. It's unique to me, Jennifer Schaus. It resides on my computer, and I am an authorized negotiator for a variety of customers that then allows me to get into the eOffer or eMod system and make changes to those contracts, meaning modifications. In this administrative section, you're also going to note any previous, current, rejected, and canceled schedules that you have. If you have a canceled schedule, meaning you did at one time have a schedule but got booted off probably because you didn't have the 25K, you will need to submit that cancellation letter. If you've been rejected and you're resubmitting, you'll also need to submit that rejection letter. If you do have a current schedule, whether it's your company directly, or perhaps you've got a joint venture, mentor-protege arrangement, you should submit that information as well. And also just any previous schedules that you held. And that's the administrative section. That's usually the easiest. Give yourself, if you're kind of spacing this out within your company, if you're a small business, 1 to 2 weeks to get that done if you're doing it perhaps on evenings and weekends. And then once you've got that, I would encourage you not to start submitting it into the eOffer system because, as I mentioned earlier, the schedule sometimes goes through refreshes or changes. So you want to make sure when you're submitting that when you're in that e-offer system, you're submitting on the correct refresh number. So perhaps wait until you've got 3/4 of this finished and there's light at the end of the tunnel for you. So that's the admin section, and now we're going to move over to the technical section. And I highly suggest kind of going in this order simply because admin is the easiest. Technical will take a little bit more time and is a little bit more complex than the admin, and then pricing is really where it can be a beehive. So we'll move on to the technical. The goal here is really for GSA to know that you have past performance that's relative to the special item number, that SIN number that you're pursuing, or SIN numbers. It's also going to show that you're a legitimate company, that you've got processes in place and people, full-time employees, to carry out the work if you're providing professional services, or that you've got variety of products, not just one product or not just one software system that you're providing to the government. It needs to be comprehensive. So that's basically the goal of the technical section. And so let's talk about the components that make up the technical section. The corporate narrative, these are specific questions that GSA has laid out. There's about, I think it's 6 or 7. Answer those completely and fully. Do not exceed the 2 pages. You're actually going to probably copy and paste your answers into the e-offer portal, but the 2 pages is the max. And make sure that you take some time and really answer that fully and completely. The second component here of the technical is the quality control. Do not just submit your quality control plan if perhaps you have one internally. Make sure that you answer each of these. Again, it's going to be about 6 or 7 questions, 2-page max. Then you answer those completely and fully. Now, those do carry some weight, but more importantly are going to be kind of these last 2 pieces of the technical section. Now, anyone that's on this call or listening to the recording of this call, there used to be a company called Open Ratings. They were a subsidiary of Dun & Bradstreet. They no longer exist. And Open Ratings would perform an anonymous survey of customers that you submit to them. They would rate you on pricing, quality, customer service, a variety of different factors. Because Open Ratings no longer exist, you are now required to list 3 is the minimum, 5 is the maximum. I encourage you to list 5 customers. These can be commercial, they can be government, it can be nonprofit, association. If you do have government customers, highly encourage you to list your government customers, particularly if it is direct federal. If you've got state and local, list those as well. If you're a subcontractor, that would be a B2B, business to business arrangement. I would list those next as far as order of preference. And there's a couple of different components that GSA will want to see: the company name, the project value, your point of contact name, phone number, email address, and the short paragraph there about the project. So that's the third one. The fourth one here is the one that I think carries the most weight in the technical section, which is the project narratives. You will typically need 1 project narrative. Again, this is going to be a project or a contract that is relative to the special item number that you are pursuing. Again, this could be commercial, could be government, could be nonprofit, association, whoever it is that you're working with, something that is relative, that type of work that you have done in this contract speaks to the description in the special item number that you're pursuing. If you're going after IT services, you're going to need at least 2. Everything else is pretty much 1 project narrative, but please check the solicitation for those requirements. There's going to be about a 4-page narrative for those with specific questions that GSA is asking you. Where can you find the templates for these? They are all in the solicitation, just like any solicitation, meaning RFP, RFI, RFQ. So please download the solicitation and look for those templates there. Along with the write-up for this 4th section here, you will also need the statement of work, which is typically found in the contract, so make sure that you have that. There are some time and date restrictions here on the references as well as the project narratives. You can find those in the solicitation. For any companies that are providing products, so something tangible, a handheld product, or perhaps it's a larger than handheld. But if you are providing a product, you will need a letter of supply if you're a non-manufacturer. Make sure that you're also complying with the Trade Agreement Acts as well as Ability 1. Because of the coronavirus, there are some exceptions to various products for TAA, but you're still going to need that letter of supply. And TAA and Ability 1 will change. Those are very fluid regulations that sometimes go through changes based on various administrations. So it's not just, okay, we comply with TAA here in September, but countries may pop on or pop off of TAA throughout the year. So you need to make sure you have a monitoring system in place for both TAA and Ability 1. More information on those is found, take a guess, in the solicitation. Okay, so for that technical section, I'd probably estimate 2 to 3 weeks to put that together. Again, if you're a small business doing this perhaps evenings, weekends, you can get it done in, obviously quicker time than that. But realistically speaking, if you are truly busy and a hunter and fighting for contracts out there, then your time is probably limited. And if you do it yourself, again, 2, 3, 4 weeks to get that section put together. Okay, now we're going to talk about the pricing section, which can be a little bit hairy at times, depending upon what processes you have in place and what pricing structures you have and how you've invoiced your customers and what your invoices look like and what your contracts look like. So let's take a deep breath here and dig in. The goal of the pricing section of your proposal is so that when the federal government is purchasing from you, specifically through the schedule, they know that A, you've been checked out, you meet all the requirements, you didn't just start your company yesterday and you're just kind of winging it. Also, primarily, again, as I mentioned, the focus of the schedule, 99.999% of the schedule is to ensure that GSA has negotiated your absolutely lowest prices. So that way, when the government buys from you, they know that you've already been, we'll say, quote unquote, checked out, that they're getting the best price. And they also know that your prices are competitive with the others on the schedule. And this is, again, public information. If you're selling it to the federal government and you're not using the public data that's out there, shame on you. And you also should be doing this homework before you decide to go and get a schedule. It's, you can spend 30 minutes doing a couple quick searches to find out, are your labor categories in sync with other companies' labor categories? I'm going to talk about that in a moment. But really, the focus of the schedule is that your prices are fair and reasonable. So once you're actually on the schedule, GSA will encourage you to offer discounted rates. So if you've got a widget that you're selling for $100, or you've got a labor category of a project manager at $100 per hour, once you're on the schedule, you're probably going to start bidding for GSA contracts at perhaps $95 for the widget, regardless of volume or quantity discounts, or $95 for that labor category. So obviously your margins will be lower, and you need then to have heavy volume, meaning you need to have some prospects in your pipeline that specifically want to buy from you, but more specifically prefer to purchase your type of product or services through the schedule. Because if you're just doing this to get one contract that's, $200,000, this is probably not the right tool for you. Okay, so the components of the pricing section, these are the pieces that you'll find in the solicitation. If you're providing professional services, then you'll have your labor category matrix. That's going to be the name of the job title, minimum education requirements, minimum years of experience requirement, and then a short description. If you're selling products, you're going to have the product, the SKU number, and then the short description about the product. If you're selling software, similar, however your software is sold, is it per user? Is it based on the amount of data that's used? software as a service, and et cetera. You would just list and describe each and every line item. And then you'll create your price list. So either you're using commercial rates or market rates. Commercial rates, these are typically just your set in stone rates. Your market rates fluctuate based on who your customer is. Sometimes we mark it up, sometimes we mark it down. That would be market rates. And then associated with that is the EPA. EPA is the Economic Price Adjustment. So this is how you will increase your GSA schedule awarded rates year over year. Now, if you go onto any of the GSA Advantage sites and you're looking at your competitors or looking at who is on the schedule that also sells your services or products, which I highly encourage you to do, if you see that their prices are broken out for the next 5 years or perhaps even 20 years, which is the length of the schedule, as long as you meet the terms and conditions, if the rates are built out, then the company has used most likely market rates. If you only see the rates for 1 year, it means that the company used commercial rates. So if you use commercial rates, your economic price adjustment then is based on your commercial price list. So if you want to increase your GSA rates after you are on the schedule, you'll then need to submit invoices, commercial invoices, to show that your commercial rates have changed, increased, and therefore you believe that your GSA rates should also increase. Your market rates then are typically tied to Department of Labor. So Table 5, which will have indexes for the percentage that various labor categories within certain industries should be increased. This discussion about pricing and how to increase prices is something that's much easier explained through a whiteboard or just an in-person discussion with some paper and pen. So let's keep moving on, because that's kind of more post-award. But either you're using commercial rates or market rates, and hopefully you have your labor built out with specific rates associated with them. You'll then need backup documentation, whether you're selling software, professional services, or products. And the backup documentation is basically an invoice for each and every single line item that you are proposing to show that you have sold this item, this product, this software, this professional service, this labor category in the past. And there are sometimes hurdles to overcome here in this invoice justification. You may have just a lump sum contract that is billed over the course of 12 months. So perhaps you're billing $230,000 each month, and it's for labor. Then you would put a spreadsheet behind that says, here's the labor that was used. Here's the hourly rate associated with that labor times the number of hours that those LCATs, labor categories, worked for the month. And that spreadsheet behind the $230,000 lump sum for quote-unquote consulting services to ABC company or ABC agency or whoever it is, that Excel spreadsheet needs to equal exactly the $230,000 that's on the front of the invoice. So that's how you come up with your documentation. Or you may have, sometimes we see that somebody has an invoice that has, Joe Smith is $175 per hour, and he works 100 hours this month. And Susie Brown is $137.20 per hour, and she worked 120 hours this month. So same thing, you can use that as your justification. Or you may have different labor categories that then can be crosswalked to the labor categories that you're trying to propose to GSA. But either way, you're going to need that documentation for each and every line item that you're proposing, whether it's labor or products. And if you've got different levels for perhaps a project manager, level 1, level 2, level 3, you will need an invoice for each and every one of those. Now, let's just say you've got 6 labor categories total, which I would say if that's the minimum that you have, then great. You probably want more than that, but less than that, you probably want to rethink getting onto the schedule. But you may have one invoice that covers each of those labor categories, and that's fine. Okay, and then the next part is putting together the price proposal. This is an Excel spreadsheet. The template can be found in the solicitation. You can have a variety of columns here to complete. A lot of it will come from your labor category matrix or your product listing. You'll disclose your commercial prices and or your market rates, who your most favored customer is. And this is not the customer that's got a really cool logo or you think the sales rep there is just a super nice guy or gal. This is the customer that you have given regular standard discounts to. And then you'll propose to GSA what the rate that you want to offer them would be. And this should be equal to or preferably lower than your most favored customer rate. Now, let's say you've got 100 different line items that you're proposing. You may have 100 different most favored customers, or you may have the same most favored customer for everybody. You need to look at this on a case-by-case basis. And there's no right or wrong answer here. It just depends on how your company has done business up until this point. You also then need to provide, and this will make the process go much smoother, competitive analysis here. So your comp. So you'll go on to, if you're a product company, you go to GSA Advantage and look up the competitors that are selling similar or the same items, and what is their GSA rate and how does that compare to what you are proposing. If you're providing professional services, you'll go to the calc site, which is listed there, and you'll look for each and every line item, what is the average GSA rate and who are the other companies also selling this labor category and where do you fall in that mix. Now, I'm going to take a quick note here. I'll encourage you guys to take a note here that more or less encourages you to do this homework. I should have highlighted this before you decide to get onto the schedule. Because if you've already then put together the administrative section, the technical section, then you get to this pricing and you find that your rates for your product, your software, your services, that your rates are, 3x the average GSA rate, and GSA is going to bump you down to these average rates, which is what they're going to do, then you're not going to be profitable on the schedule, especially considering once you're on the schedule that your rates are a price ceiling. And then you'll be encouraged to give even lower discounts. Plus you add in the fixed cost of contract administration and compliance. So there is a cost of doing business with GSA. You're going to need the human sales rep, and the list go on and on. So again, that's why it's really important to have a full pipeline. Okay, so those comps, that is something, again, you probably want to do as you're making a go, no-go decision on getting the schedule. The most important, I'll say, form in this proposal is the Commercial Sales Practices form, otherwise known as the CSP1. And in the CSP, you're going to disclose who is your MFC, your most favorite customer, what are the discounts they get, how often do they get them, why did they get them, et cetera, et cetera. We'll talk about that in more detail, I think, on the next slide. You've also got to have a fair and reasonable statement why your pricing is fair and reasonable, and that should map back to the comps that you pulled up. If you're in the professional services sector, then you're going to need to submit your HR policy and lay out for GSA how and when you compensate your employees, as well as how overtime is paid. That should be in accordance with federal laws at time and a half. Okay, and those are really the, as I mentioned, the components. Now we'll dig into the CSP, and again, this is a GSA form. It is publicly available, as is everything I'm telling you here. You can do this homework, and I highly encourage you to do so. So here's where you disclose who is getting your standard discounts, what entity, whether it's just one company or a specific category of companies, meaning nonprofits, associations, state and local governments, 501c3s, whatever it is, or is it just ABC company, or anytime we deal with Raytheon, or anytime we deal with Lockheed Martin, we give them a discount. GSA is more interested in your standard discounts. because they will want something that's comparable to your standard discounts. If you have any non-standard discounts, meaning, let's say you started your business, for example, 5 years ago, and so in the beginning you gave some really low rates just to start getting some revenue and build the business, or let's say ABC company is a really big prime, came to you and said, hey, you guys want to be a sub on this contract at, insert whatever agency, and you were really trying to get a footprint in there, but the rates were really, really low. And that's usually how it works. The prime is going to dictate the rates and take it or leave it. If you don't want it, there's probably 500 other companies in line behind you willing to suffer with those low rates as a subcontractor just to get the experience and have, Department of Defense or whoever it is as a customer, even though you're a subcontractor. So if that was just a one-time discount and it's not a standard part of your business, you can explain that this was just a one-time discount that we gave simply to win the business, but here's 10 other invoices showing that we typically charge 2 times as high as that, or whatever the multiplier is. Okay, so if you're always offering these standard discounts, meaning anytime an association comes to you or a nonprofit, you always give them a 10% discount. As I mentioned, GSA will want something that's comparable to your standard discount. So you're obviously going to give them probably 11 or 12% discount. And then once you get to the negotiations with them as they're reviewing your proposal, they're probably going to ask for a 13 or 14 or possibly more. Now, as I mentioned, if you are offering this one-time spot discount, either to win the business because your company was brand new or because it was a once-in-a-lifetime offer to be a subcontractor to Northrop Grumman and do work at Department of the Navy, and that's why we took it. But if you have other invoices showing that you typically charge a much higher rate, then you can certainly prove this was just a one-time non-standard discount, and therefore GSA, we go out of business if we gave you 15 or 16% like we did in this one-time occurrence. But your argument needs to be strong and sound, and you will need these other invoices to make your case. Okay, so as GSA is reviewing your proposal, they conduct these 2 main litmus tests, which you guys can probably figure out based on what we've covered so far. One is your internal discounts. Who have you given your standard discounts to? And that's disclosed on the CSP, the Commercial Sales Practices Form. The other litmus test they will look at is, okay, so let's say your rate for the project manager or the widget is $100. Your most favorite customer is a standard discount. You always give nonprofits a rate of, we'll just say $98 for the widget or $98 per hour, and that's standard. And these nonprofits make up 50% of your business. And that's a standard discount. So therefore, you're then going to offer GSA a rate of $97. So then GSA says, okay, that's fine. That's the litmus test number 1. And then number 2, they're going to say, okay, let's look at this project manager. Let's look at this widget, either on the Calc or the GSA Advantage site, depending if it's labor or products. And let's see what is the average rate for this project manager. And so in this case here, I think I plugged in project manager, and then you've got your filters there on the right-hand side. You want to make sure you're comparing apples to apples. So if your project manager, the way you define it, your company defines it, is they must have a bachelor's degree and at least 5 years of experience. And let's say you're charging, $200 for this labor category, but you're offering GSA $190. The average rate is coming in at $140. So again, do this homework before you decide to get onto the schedule. Can you live with $140? And this is a publicly available website. This is the calc.gsa.gov site. And you can do the same homework on the gsaadvantage.gov site for products. So I wasn't able to get the whole screenshot of the Calc site. So as you scroll down, you'll see the standard price there is $140, and then below that you're going to have a list of all of the companies that have this labor category. And you can filter it more by the special item number, which you actually, which I don't think I did in this case. It was just a quick search, but you want to make sure that you're comparing, again, kind of apples to apples. That's what that looks like, and I encourage you to do it, to do your homework there. So again, pricing is the main component, the main purpose of the schedule. Your GSA rates are a price ceiling or a not to exceed rate, which means that once you're on the schedule, you're going to be offering lower rates within your schedule. However, outside of your schedule, you could be dinged for offering rates lower than your GSA rate. So if you're a larger company that has perhaps a commercial sales team and then also has a government sales team, and those are two different divisions and two different sets of people, the commercial people will need to know that they can't be out there kind of winging it with a company saying, oh yeah, we can offer you X amount of dollars for these widgets or for the labor. They're going to need to be cognizant of your GSA rates and ensuring that they are not dipping below your GSA rates. So just reiterating that within your schedule, you are encouraged by the government to offer discounts, which again means lower margins. Outside of your schedule, you cannot go below your GSA rates. If you do, what happens is you have triggered the price reduction clause. And then you're going to have to notify GSA, hey, we dipped below our project manager rate, or we sold a widget for, I don't know, half off the GSA rate to ABC company or even to Department of Commerce who did not purchase through the schedule. So again, within your schedule, you can offer discounts. Outside of your schedule, even if the customer is a government customer, you cannot go below GSA rates. You will then have to pay back GSA, basically the differential of any government contracts that were awarded through your schedule at that lower rate, and you're then going to have to change your GSA rate to the lower rate that you sold your widget or your labor at. It gets kind of hairy, and again, this is where you need contract administration and people that are paying attention to your pricing. Okay, so just some final remarks. The timing piece of this is important, and I'm going to estimate 6 to 12 months to get on the schedule. This number can always change. It depends on how big is your offering. Are you going after 10 different special item numbers, or 2, or 1? Do you have 1,000 different line items, or do you have 10? A larger proposal is obviously a larger offering is going to take longer to put together as well as longer to review. Your proposal prep is about, and these are all months, 1 to 3 months. Then you're waiting anywhere from 3 to 9 months. Could be longer, could be shorter. The clarifications, this is the period where GSA will send you an email perhaps on a Tuesday and want some answers by 5 o'clock on Wednesday, and then you don't hear from them for another 3 to 4 weeks, and they come back then again with an additional round of questions. At that point, if you are getting questions, you know that you have passed muster. Your proposal is compliant. They just want additional documentation on various pieces. And then you get to the negotiations where they will go through every single line item. So if you have 1,000 line items, GSA will go through each of those line items and typically ask for additional discounts, prompt payment discounts, quantity and volume discounts. And again, here is where those comps come into play, knowing that, hey, here's 3 different companies that provide the same exact service or the same exact product, and here's their prices, and ours is kind of within the threshold or within that GSA average rate. Once you're on the schedule, then you'll start getting these opportunities that are pushed to you through GSA eBuy. Do not rely on these RFPs to fuel your pipeline, because they will not. Basically, GSA eBuy is a scaled-down version of FedBizOps, which obviously is now betasam.gov. It's just a smaller selection pool. They have been worked. These opportunities have been worked and wired, and it's just that the sales rep was clever enough to push the buyer to GSA schedule, to have the technical portion of the solicitation kind of written for them. It'll probably apply to, 2 or 3 companies, but it's going to be, there's going to be pretty narrow, or that is the preference of how your buyer purchases. But again, those opportunities, there's a relationship in play. So this is not the holy grail. You will still need a relationship. You've got to monitor pricing. There's a lot to this. So be cognizant of that before you go down the path. Okay, again, it's not a silver bullet. It is not for everybody and absolutely not required to do business with the government. There are plenty of opportunities out there that do not require a GSA schedule, that are not some other contract vehicle. And there are agency-wide contract vehicles, Navy, Seaport E, NASA, SUP. Every department more or less has their own contract vehicle. So it's just that GSA schedule can be used across all. So make sure that you do your homework first on the GSA Advantage site, on the calc.gsa.gov site, and make sure that your rates are going to fall in line with the others on the schedule. It may not be profitable or a wise business decision for you to go down this path. And there is so much free, publicly available data that you'd be foolish not to let the data drive your decisions. No other industry has this data out there, so take advantage of it. And this slide just reiterates everything I just said as far as doing your homework. If you don't know if there's return on investment, if you don't know how big the market is for your specific product, your specific service, your specific software, through the schedule, if you don't know what the competitive landscape, if you haven't done a SWOT analysis through the schedule, then you don't know your customer, and it's probably premature for you to even go down this path. As far as completing the proposal, obviously you can change your own oil, do your own taxes, and many other things in life you can do yourself. But at times it does make sense to outsource to somebody that does this on a regular basis, that knows that the refresh number is now refresh number 4 and what those changes are and how that will affect your business. If you're doing it internally, you want to map out a compliance matrix. And maybe you do some sort of hybrid where you complete the proposal internally, and then you hire us or a consultant or somebody else to look at, or even somebody internally who's maybe not part of the initial proposal, but then is looking at the proposal with fresh eyes. So you want to make sure that, again, that all your documentation is current, that SAM record, some of the other forms that test that your contracts fall within the window that GSA is looking for, that you've got the right financials, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of moving parts to this, and so just be careful and be cognizant of those. We are more than happy to help you with completely managing the process for you, or even coming in just to do a review. And that's all that I've got. So hope I didn't scare away too many people as far as what the schedule is and what it's not. But please do your homework before you go down the path and make good business decisions based on the data that's out there. With that, I'll conclude, and thank you guys for your time. If you have questions, contact information is here. Best tool is probably just the email at the hello@jennifershouse.com, and happy to schedule an exploratory call to discuss your needs and see if this is the right fit. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Actually, this Friday, we are covering FAR Part 38, if I'm not mistaken, which is going to be covered by Tony Anakeith over at Williams Mullen, and that is contract vehicles. So if you want more of a legal spin on schedules and contract vehicles, I highly encourage you to sign up for that. It is complimentary. And that one will be recorded as well. That's under our FAR webinar series, which is on our website if you want to register. So thanks again, everybody, and hope to see you at another webinar soon.